Okay.
Hi.
Hallo.
Hallo. Na, gab es eine Verzögerung?
Ja, ein
Okay.
wenig. Soll ich alle eintreten lassen?
Lass
oder?
alle rein und
Okay,
wir
super.
legen los. Okay. I hope everybody's in here. There was a little delay. Sarah, is everybody in, or are there still people waiting?
One moment. Now everybody's in.
Everybody's in. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're coming to the last session of the symposium, and you already know the game. It's the forum. It's meant for sharing and discussing, and the sharing will start with a small synopsis of the panels, so you can know what you missed in the other panels. So maybe we'll start with panel 1, which is Dr. Louise Lepage. Can you give a synopsis?
Yes, I will do my best. Actually, Jen Park-Starbuck just gave a beautiful summary summarising our panel. And in fact, sort of summarising conference, and she did it beautifully. So I'm going to be filching horribly from Jen. I hope you don't mind, Jen. But essentially, in our panel 1, which was titled Embodiment and Movement, we had 3 speakers. Dr. Florence Pignard, who was really focusing on a dance. You had a male dancer, and I forget the name of it was an HRP2 robot, which looks very human-like, very metallic. But it was focusing on a moment. It was very striking. Focused on a moment of a hug that Florence titled An Uncanny Hug. And it was essentially, she was unpacking with this hug, this deeply caring kind of gesture, the experience of the dancer, which was full of sort of anxiety and sort of a sense of the risk, whether that risk was real or not. Imaginatively, emotionally, the dancer carried that risk. So that, yeah, it was a very powerful moment to be focusing on. So for me, there we have, I mean, what I'm going to actually jump all over the place. I apologize. I haven't had any time to pull this summary together, but I was really struck by moving from Florence's paper, where we have a sense of the fragility of the human in this social gesture interaction choreographed with the robot, that shifted us out of kind of this humanistic anthropocentric frame, and yeah, heightening the fragility of the human and the power of the imagination. And then we move into Doug Eco's paper titled Becoming Automatic, Algorithmic and Robotic Performance After 2008. And in that paper, Doug looks at 2008 as kind of a historical marker, the financial crash. And sort of coming out of that, we have this work that's engaging, you know, with algorithmic theatre and robots, but we have these kind of automatic performances that within this capitalistic sort of frame, a drive of that essentially I was struck just by the overwhelming nature of capitalism and automation that was pushing the human either sort of out of the frame or to a point that the human wasn't able to keep up, to cope, or to use actually our next speaker's word, exhaustion, moving towards exhaustion. So I'm going to move now to Dr. Christoph van Baarle's paper called Spectral Machines. And he was talking about Chris Verdunk's works, where we're given these kind of spectral, what was the term? What I'm going to do, I'm butchering this, I apologize, spectrality, but we have these massive kind of objects on stage that appear and disappear, but really framed. Capitalism still is a really important frame for the work, but increasing ecology. So now we're moving towards kind of a finitude, sort of towards the end, looking towards extinction, looking towards moving from post-humanism to the post-human humus, to a literal after-human. So I was really, really struck by this, by the kinds of focus on the body of these papers. As I say, this kind of the fragility of the human as these overwhelming kind of frames and narratives, historical narratives and drives of capitalism and the Anthropocene and the ecological crisis, a kind of, in terms of scale, overwhelming the human. And I'm going to sum up now, I'm just going to finish. Sorry if I've, Gunter, if I'm going on too long, I'm going to tie things up with what I wrote down, what Jen Parker Starbuck wrote, which was beautiful. So she spoke about what struck her through this conference, and I think she's really right, is empathy has come through really, really strongly. And this last panel really spoke to empathy, but also brought to bear discussion of violence, particularly of the past few decades, but of technology more generally, as capitalism has been deeply problematic, and a sense of haunting and the uncanny and spectrality. So they were brilliant papers. They were really, really, if you weren't there, you missed a lot. So thank you. Thank you, Gunter.
Thanks for spurring our fear of missing out. Thank you very much for that. Okay, the second panel was chaired by Dr. Monteverdi Anna Maria. Could you please sum up? Are you there?
Okay, in my panel, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, in my panel, and the title is Robots, New Materiality and Disappearance of the Human. And we have Julie Michel Morin, Professor Peter Eckersol, and I have a small abstract for that. In my panel, Professor Eckersol offered an analysis of Okada Toshiki's Eraser series, made in collaboration with a sculptor, Tepei Kanui, as a laboratory for an ecological theater. It's based on the Fukushima catastrophe. Toshiki is one of the most known Japanese theater directors, and the collaboration between Okada and Kanui produced a theatrical event that includes non-human forms, video projection, lighting and soundscape, and a vast series of objects. And it was an opportunity also to discuss about artivism. Artivism, in this case, the relationship between theater, science, and ecological crisis. The talk started from the thesis of the book by Kosho Sabu, Radiation and Revolution, and Professor Eckersall explored Okadas as a laboratory for an ecological theater and showing where theater might need to go in the future. And also in particular, Professor Eckersall spoke about the manifesto of Eighth Theater as an augmented and extended idea of the human. The second one is by Julie Michel Morin. She has analyzed how the robots agency and the performativity are staged in two different performances, that I saw personally in Italy, Uncanny Valley by Stephen Kaiji and Rimini Protocol, and The Inferno by Louis-Philippe Demers and Bill Warren, starting from a materialist approach with particular regard to the work of feminist physicist Karen Barad, and with the difference from interaction and interactions. These performances present distinct visions of the human-robot relationships. One, Inferno, is a participative robotic performance inspired by the concept of control and the representation of hell using exoskeleton, and the other using the thematic of robotics, of Uncanny Valley using a robot in stage, while both challenge the theater as an anthropocentric space. She has tried to explain how they succeed in this example and expanded the meaning of being humans through the robotic technologies on stage.
Okay. Sorry, I was kind of distracted. Thank you very much. So this was the second panel, and we're moving straight over to the third panel, chaired by Esther Foucault. Please.
Yes, in panel 3, Stage and Robotics Between Disorders and Mythic Tradition. We have discussed, we have two panelists, Francesca Cecconi and Thomas Riccio. With Francesca Cecconi, we have discussed about the relationship between puppetry and robots within the contemporary scene. We discussed about how machines perform by us, with us, and for us, transmitting stories and ideas. In particular, she spoke about beat performance made with an electronic puppet animated through a cyber glove created by Giacomo Verde. And so we want to discuss about the significance of multi-layer relationship with everyday technological objects that now seems to be more alive, and also about the human astonishment when they assist to this kind of object with an hidden control or with a virtual control. Thomas Riccio presented a really amazing overview about robot mythology as an immersive and co-evolutionary narrative in which we are included without defined boundaries, that is sometimes strictly related to our culture and historical time. He spoke about AI and robots and how could be seen as an emergent species, and he focused on Sophia, an android, a well-known android, came online in 2006, and he defined her like a phenomena, like a pop mainstream icon, and also like a symbol, a liminal entity, and a sort of goddess. She's a machine that could be seen like a reincarnation of a goddess and a trickster archetypes in a liminal space. So there was no time enough to develop these two interesting presentation about how we could see, how can I say, robot very close to human but in a non-anthropomorphic point of view starting point.
Thank you very much. So again, we have time for a discussion. And to me, it seems like these last panels, they have moved into more societal and critical views of the robots and humankind. Something like thoughts about we might be at the end of a humanistic understanding of ourselves, and we might be at the end of a humanistic form of theater, maybe comes to my mind. So are there any questions, comments, discussions? Yes, Esther.
I've got a question for Thomas, as I promised. Performance and robot performance require the voluntary suspension of disbelief. But what about the spectator identification? I refer to Sophia or android like Sophia, human-like Sophia.
Okay, can you hear me? So,
Yes.
So the question again was
About the spectator identification in relation with an android, a perfect human-like android like Sophia.
Well, we do anthropomorphize, and we do it all the time. It's kind of like intuitive and instinctual to, I think, being human. So with Sophia, it's as I mentioned in the talk, it's not only about anthropomorphizing; it's also what she represents. And the narrative exists within her, which relates to in mind's robotic mythology, and she builds on it. So those fears, those anticipations are part of the structure that she moves from. And that's how, when I wrote for Sophia and with Hansen, that's what we embedded within her, that she would kind of touch these deep structural mythic patterns. And then when she moved forward. So it's more than just anthropomorphizing and suspension of disbelief. It's actually triggering maybe something that's deeply rooted in how we view reality. Because mythically, I mean, what we see right now is essentially there was no meaning in it. We gave it meaning. So we created, and we have an agreement of like how we're seeing reality, how we understand language, etc. So with that understanding, having worked with indigenous people, carrying that into the realm of robotics, essentially creating and kind of building on that understanding that we're in a new space and evolving a new space based on an old space, an old pattern, and moving towards the future. So I hope hopefully that answers it.
Yes, because we spoke about Sophia like an autonomous entity, a new symbol of a new kind of procreation. So I was wondering about this aspect.
I mean, humans are always procreating. I mean, my cell phone's a procreation of something. I mean, it's both of me. It's moving beyond tool. You know, the way it like monitors me and also anticipates things, whether I'm doing email, do you want to say this, or correct my grammar, or make suggestions. So in a sense, it's already evolving beyond this. These are slight indicators, but it's something that the AI is advancing at such an accelerated rate. What was true a year ago is no longer true. It's just like exploding. And it's the fusing of the abstracted, which Sophia represents, and AI is really kind of like something that's beyond our imagining. And soon it may lead to a singularity of sorts. In a sense, it is. No one really knows, like the computers you're looking at now, no one person knows those computers. There are people who know software, know hardware, etc., but no one knows it. So in a sense, it's a black box. And yet we think we have control over it. And in a sense, likewise, the analogy is with humanoids, social robots like Sophia, no one really knows. Engineers know certain part or other things. And then when it works, interfaces with humans, there's a whole nother thing that's happening. And every person seeing it sees something different, and maybe referencing it. So if you're Muslim, you're seeing one thing. If you're Christian, you're seeing something else. If you're someone who is agnostic, you're seeing something else. If you're a child, you see something else. So in a way, it's evolving and exploding beyond us, and in that way, maybe going into another realm. And we tend to look at things in an anthropomorphic way, in a human-centered way. Whereas I think, and as I mentioned before, the theater tends to basically understand robots in a human-centric way, or in a sense, they're already beyond us. It's out. Robots and AI is outside in the world. It's happening. You just go outside where you are now. People are on cell phones and iPads. It's beyond us. And so, in a sense, the robots that I've worked on were built for beyond the stage, because the stage is the world now, and that's where the action's happening. And so it has to have that in mind. That's the end point, and that's how we're gonna maybe make a change in the world.
Yeah, this strikes me as very important to kind of think of the theater as something that's is something like a humanistic enterprise that we created, and maybe it's coming to an end, and maybe we have to leave the theaters. And somehow in the symposium there's something like we're leaving the semiotic space for humans. We're trying to get beyond that somehow. This is seems important and scary to me, but it might also apply to the rooms, to the spaces that we're working at.
I tell you, having worked with robots since 2005, it scares the shit out of me. But I'm also excited.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk to a robot like Sophia for an hour and you realize I just had all sorts of emotions, and I just kind of I forgot I was talking to a robot, and she's recognizing me. She looks at my features and my expressions. It's like it's moving beyond us.
Yeah. So Pablo Ventura.
Yes, with respect with what Thomas is saying, I actually missed these 3 days of discussion on the ethics of robotics, and especially on artificial intelligence, because some of the robots that we have seen dancing these days, they are actually financed by the military, and the drones nowadays, they're killing societies, but they're still piloted by human persons behind these drones. But it looks like the future is going in a direction, in a very scary direction, that even artificial intelligence is going to be just wiping out using these robots with firepower. The future armies are going to be based on the robots and swarms of little robots with guided by artificial intelligence. So I actually missed a capital that we have to discuss these issues, and even on the stage of the dangers lurking behind the development of which is taking the robot is going to affect the future. And specifically, I always like to go back to Isaac Asimov, the 3 laws of robotics, that we as artists and engineers, we should be pushing the discussion in this direction before it's too late.
And yeah, I agree. And it's dangerous, and a lot of DARPA money, defense research money in the US, is going for robotics. And so that is worrying. But it's really just a reflection of humans and human need. And also, me personally, I've never been adversely affected by anything technological. So I'm thinking, is it something that I'm imagining and projecting in the world as a possibility, or is it something a reality? And is there a counterweight to it? And that's what I think, and that's why I'm committed to Hansen Robotics and my work with them, and kept me with him, is the fact that he wants to be a countervailing force, because your cell phone is part of that. Your cell phone is part of that drone. The internet that we're on right now is from DARPA. It's from the defense, research lab for defense. So in a way, but it's not hurtful. Maybe social media can be hurtful, but it's like essentially, I've never really been hurt by technology. Yes, but there are instances, and it can possibly go there. So we have to kind of keep that in mind.
Okay.
I would also like to refer to the suggestion you said that actually the developments in robots are already with AI beyond human scale. Maybe I misunderstood something because I think today what I would like to wrap up what I heard today from Mike and the panel is actually that there is an interesting aspect of robotics on stage, also animating objects, which is not the same like working with robots or robotic scale. So I think as artists working with the idea of a robotic stage or stage robotics, I think it should open up the scale of where the measure of us is where creativity goes with robots on stage. I think going into animating objects or working beyond the idea of anthropomorphic robot adaptations of human skills, I think that's opening up a whole scale of new ways of acting creativity on stage. What do you think? It's always about the human ideal figure replaced by robots, or where does the action goes, right? I just want to point out that question, where creativity and robots can go. Just open up the idea.
Are you also talking about creativity done by robots?
No, just about the how we look at. So I think it's on the eyes of the beholder how we interpret the robotic actions on stage. And I think this morning we had this funny robots of just cubes on stage, which gives actually an sometimes much more opening up the imagination possibilities of the audience looking at robots. And I'm kind of sometimes sick of all these humanoid replacement attempts of making them even more human. Sorry, Thomas, it's not something I would take. I think it should go into various directions, and I would like to open up that question if robotics always have to be in comparison with humans. Maybe it's not part of that symposium only, but maybe it's another question.
I think it's probably good to post that question and leave it open because it's not directed to anybody, or is it?
No, it was just I'm rephrasing the idea what Thomas told us about the human scale, because it's actually where we humans measure ourselves with, but actually doesn't need to go anywhere when I think of robotics or stage robots only. It's just limiting for me.
Okay.
If I could just maybe briefly, I don't want to dominate, but I liked what you presented like in Arizona. It was very beautiful. And I like what I saw also with the cubes. I think maybe we're at a point now of moving towards, not crisis, but definitely moving in an area where we need some way to relate, and humans relate to humans. And that's maybe why the prominence of humanoid robots. We tend to, and even in a cube, I'll anthropomorphize. So it's basically, the cube is not, it's not really doing the cubeness. It's basically, it's responding to and anticipating what I want out of it. And in your work as well, it's like, it's not doing the lightness in the movement, it's interacting. And that's maybe indicative of this immersive world that we live in, that my refrigerator is connected, my printer's connected to things, which is AI, which surrounds us. So it's kind of like maybe two different things. And I think they're mutually compatible and maybe complementary, but I think I doubt if, for instance, Sophia spoke at the UN, I doubt if a cube would speak at the UN and have the same effect, or a pepper, right? It just wouldn't have the same effect. It's just, that's the way we're wired. We want to see things that we can respond to.
Yeah, I mean, I first saw that your robot, actually, I was amazed. It's no question about that. I was really shocked when I saw it. But I was also really thinking about my own way to relate to theater and seeing humans on stage. That's for sure. Thank you for that.
I've seen a hand that now went down again from Sylvia Circo. Do you want to still? Yeah. And Boris Abramovich. Maybe Boris Abramovich, since you raised it now, go ahead.
Thank you. The discussion is incredibly interesting. Just to say a few words based on Chris's recent comments and Esther's about Sophia and all these emotions. Would it be the same if the cube was? Would the effect be anyway similar if instead of Sophia we had a rectangular form, non-anthropomorphic? But what is in this sense interesting to me is actually what is the line of this personalization with robots? For example, and I mentioned it in my presentation, like in social robotics, the line is more clearly drawn in terms of personalization, emotional safety, or emotional perspective of the user, of the human, deception, trust. Whereas I think in stage robots, in theater and in art, these lines are blurred, as they should be in artistic concept. Some of the things, some of the projects that we discussed cross this ethical line. But again, this is a one-time art conception, experienced by user as an artistic project. So maybe someone that would be something that I had on my mind. Ethical implications in a performance event versus ethical safety, emotional safety in social robotics. Just something to think about, or to something that I had on my mind as well in my presentation and just now through this discussion about Sophia.
Thank you for adding. Thank you, Boris. Sylvia Cerco, do you want to?
Hearing all these interesting exchanges, and especially Chris's remark on what exactly we are reflecting when we are having fears or projections on robotics. And since I've assisted also to Christoph van Barker's presentation, and I saw also another prototype of the robot I'm working on, older one in here, I cannot help to think also about the obsolescence of these machines. And it is related to our own obsolescence, of course, but it is because mostly we are our reference point. So we cannot help not analyzing or not projecting our fear into them, since the ones that build them, work with them, or have expectations from them is still us. So I think it's related, this question of obsolescence, to what are we currently living as a race in post-humanists. And I think the resiliation part, I might be naive, but it might come from there. They might be, machines might be as obsolete as we are at one point. At least I hope.
Does anybody want to pick up that ball? Yeah, Douglas Akel.
Yeah, thank you. I'm struck by that a lot of the conversations when these performances are related to broader social impacts of contemporary computing, of robotics, of AI, there seems to often be this shared premise that this robotization, the introduction of AI into industry will have these like very large effects economically on employment and such. And to me, this is a premise we really should question. I think it's really unproven and speculative. So we saw we were sort of handed a good example by Pablo's provocation about drones, robotics, deep connection to the US military. And I really share the spirit of concern behind that comment. But if we look at Boston Dynamics, a company that's always sort of cited around these things, it's actually an object case that something else is going on. So Boston Dynamics was founded with an enormous DARPA investment in the 1990s. The sort of Spot dog-like robot was initially built with the hope that it would accompany infantry expeditions in the mountains of Afghanistan, and it failed at this task. It couldn't do it. It was mostly for power reasons. You can't have it really, it like couldn't carry enough batteries for itself. And eventually the military spun it off. It became a private company, hoping that it could sell itself to industry. But then that failed as well, and it has now been sold to Hyundai, who seem intent on largely using it for advertising purposes. So we have had this movement of something that failed to have a military application, failed to have a real industrial application, and now is having this application of a kind of advertisement. Its purpose is sort of ideological. So, you know, we can debate how much we want to extrapolate from this one little case study, but it at least offers this alternate, like neither this utopian nor dystopian future, that especially robotization is a bit of a lure offered for various reasons by companies or governments to portray a certain image of the future that may not line up at all with the actual economy that we are living in and developing.
Thank you very much. I'm kind of inclined to make this the last word of the symposium. I think this would be a good stopping point for this. And of course, a lot of questions will stir more and more. And but I think we should come to a closing point. It's Friday afternoon, and we're only humans. So we have some comments, some conclusions we want to give from the organizing committee. Very short, some announcements, and then we'll stop the conference. So, Izabella.
Yes, thank you very much for the symposium, for your participation, for your presentations, for your questions. I think it was a really good meeting, and with important questions. I thank also our keynote speakers for their talks and for their presence in the panels. It was really nice and important for all of us. And I would like to thank also all this technical team, Ninja, Mirko, Sarah, Oliver, Manuel. You did really a great job. We was really stressed before the symposium how it will work, but it was really good. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you as well for participating and for sharing your point of view, your different perspectives. It was really inspiring and really rich. And we wanted to announce that we really wanted to publish the proceedings of these meetings in as quick as possible way. So we don't have for now any details. We have different doors which are opening, and we will stay in touch with you about it as soon as possible. So I think it's very important to publish all of this and to disseminate it in different media, but also the publication, the written publication has still his value, and it would be very important.
Do you give access to videos and the transcripts actually recorded?
Yeah, that's the next
so
point.
The third part.
To
Gunter, perfect.
Yeah, you realized that we had the recordings done, and if we can get the agreement of all the speakers, we would like to put them on one of our web pages or maybe on two. We're still in a little bit in discussion, and we need to clarify some stuff. But as we have all of your email addresses, we'll keep you informed. If someone is here who hasn't registered, so we don't have the email addresses, please let us know so we can put you in the newsletter, in the information emails. Yes, last but not least, I give the word to Salvo.
Yes, just again, thank you everybody for your inspiring talk and for all the conversation we had this very full 3 days. I think in any case, I mean, also doing these events via video conference, via Zoom, I mean, it's a kind of interesting way. It's really an interesting way of making this kind of symposium. I just wanted also to say that we, with Erika MAGRIS and Giulia Filacanapa, we are conducting also a series of a webinar. We have in the frame of the project of the URR project, Scene Robotique. Maybe some of you already knows about it. We already had 4 webinars that are available on the YouTube page of our project, and we are planning to continue this experience and these such webinars. Maybe I will share the link here, so it will be easier for you to go, and that's it. Okay. And
so
for the people who want to join on our activities on the project, if you want, we can share also the link for registering and for being for having the news of our project. Thank you.
So I will draw this to an official closing of the conference or symposium. Thank you all for having been here. This room will be open a couple of minutes. So if you want, there's a chance to do that. But this is the official end. Hope to see you somewhere.
Yes.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
And Salvo, you did not share the link to the website since it's not already completely finished, no?
Yeah, actually, I saw there is an error when you click on seminars. But I mean, we will work on that.
Yes,
don't worry.
that's the next step. Yes.
Yes. It's the thing that I will come.
Okay, so
But the website actually is going. I mean, it seems nice. I mean, it's start to be full of things. I think you have to check a little bit the graphical still.
Yes.
Graphics, but
that's another discussion. But I'm really curious about what we can do or not in terms of design.
Yeah, me too. Because you know, it's something new also for me. I mean, once I will better with this, and I would be able to. I don't know if you saw me somewhere, sometime like doing like that. It's not so comfortable, actually.
I thought they would do more articulated stuff rather than.
No, but actually, you know, the purpose of this is keeping you blocked, so it should not be.
No, because nowadays when you twist your ankle, or sometimes you have more articulated stuff. But yeah, I see.
No, actually, the idea is no.
Okay. Yeah.
For how many time, Salvo?
I should keep. I think okay, the 20th of this month I should see the doctor, and maybe then they will unscrew one screws. Yes, already. I started. Is the 13th of September, so it's
yes.
just a while.
No, sorry. I'm not. Yes, it's already. It's 2 months almost now.
Sarah, you can stop recording this shit.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm sorry.